Hello and welcome back to another episode of We Want to Do What with Dan and Julie. Today we've got Chris on, who is a meteorologist and weather presenter. Hi, Chris.
Hi guys, how you doing?
All good.
Well, thanks.
How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well. It's a bit chilly out there at the moment, but it's not so bad, and it's getting lighter, which is the main thing.
Yeah, that's a massive thing for me. I love it when it gets lighter. So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what you actually get up to, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an ITV meteorologist and weather presenter. I primarily work for ITV Anglia, which is the region here in the east of England. But I also cover other regions across the country, doing cover and bits and pieces. And my main job is effectively to analyse the weather on a daily basis and come up with the forecast or look at the sources of the forecast and produce the forecast story and provide it in an understandable way for viewers, the public, so that they can plan their days, plan their weeks, and understand the potential hazardous weather, or maybe even the better, nice weather. Or it can be boiled down to sometimes is whether you can get your washing out and dry it on the line. But I'm there to provide information and knowledge on that, and try and make it interesting in certain ways I can too.
So, a meteorologist, has there always been a sort of love for that kind of thing, or where does that come from?
Yeah, so I absolutely fell in love with the weather when I was a kid. In fact, I can remember I've always been interested in weather since a really young age, probably from about age 6 actually.
Oh, wow.
When I built my first ever rain gauge with my dad when I was younger. And I can remember building it, putting it in the garden, going out on a daily basis, checking, how much rain we'd had, what the temperature was, looking up at the sky. And, I've really been interested in weather. And then when I went to high school, secondary school, my geography teacher, she just encouraged me to learn about geography. And I love learning about the world. It's constantly a constant ability to change, how things are going, the processes that take place. And I then took that on to A-level and then and degree level 2. And it's basically understanding of the natural world and the natural environment that we live in. And that's basically where my passion for weather has been sparked from and comes from.
So what did you study after A-levels at university?
So I loved doing GCSE geography, and I then took that onto A-level as well. And I really worked out, if you guys are both, or if you know anyone that's a geographer, there's 2 sides to geography. There's the human side to geography and the physical geography. And human geography is things like your populations, your settlement, why people locate in certain places. Whereas physical geography is what I class as it's the hardcore understanding of the study of the earth and processes involved. So it's the hurricanes, it's the glaciers, it's the coastal erosion, it's your rivers, it's your climate change, it's everything that I would class as the interesting science of the world, how it's formed, how it's been created. And my love for weather was taken from when I studied physical geography at the University of Reading back in 2000, and I graduated in 2011 now. So that feels a long time ago. And my love and passion for weather has come from people along the way, inspiring me, but also from geography, really.
At university, were you able to tailor your course or any of extracurricular stuff around the weather and be able to actually focus in on that passion?
Yeah, so what was really good actually is when I was at the University of Reading, they've got this ability that you can take other subjects, particularly in your first year, other topics from other areas. And one department that's very strong at the University of Reading is meteorology. So what I was able to do is, because meteorology and geography and environmental science, they're all kind of the earth sciences which are linked, I was able to take modules from meteorology, science. And my tutor at the time also was a climatologist. And I can just remember, I think, being able to talk to her about certain things, and then my love for weather and the understanding of weather and climate was really able to tailor my course. So I really made that my degree was really picking the subjects and learning about the subjects that I found the most interesting.
Now, obviously for being a meteorologist and a broadcaster, going into that sort of field of meteorology, there's so many different things you could do. But how come for you decided to go down the broadcasting route? And did you have any background in that sort of creative arts industry?
That's a really good question. So as a kid, I probably did, I was actually really involved in technical theatre. I love stage lighting and all that kind of thing. So in regards to like being in front of the camera, it was less so of what I did, but I've got no problem I've been doing talks and presentations and doing big group talks and bits and pieces for a long time. In fact, even through my degree, and been comparing and been event hosting. So I've been doing effectively some kind of in front of house kind of work, as it were. But when the route I took after I finished uni is I joined the Met Office and trained to be a meteorologist, and trained to be a forecaster. And it was then a kind of, it's the communication side that I think my skill set is in. And I narrowed down, I thought, where do I sit best in this area? And it kind of, it worked into this position that I was much better at doing public weather and therefore broadcast meteorology, which led on to the media side. And originally it started with me briefing weather presenters and television and meteorologists, other broadcast meteorologists, with the story, because that's part of the process. And then I worked for Channel 5 actually for a year alongside Claire Nazir, who's another weather presenter or meteorologist for them. And basically I then took that opportunity, because they don't come up very often, took that opportunity to apply for a job at ITV.
So you kind of mentioned it there, but how did you actually get your foot in the door to get this kind of job? Because like you say, there aren't many of these jobs around.
I think the reason why there probably aren't so many of these jobs around is because people absolutely love doing this job. And it's a really fun, it's also an important thing that everyone looks for, particularly in the news. I even remember as a kid, like saying, "Oh, put the TV on, let's watch it," or we had the news on, and it was always like that bit. We need to watch the weather at the end so we can plan what we're doing for the weekend or whatnot. So it's this thing that has an impact on everyone's life, although it's maybe in the back of your mind. So when it came to, I applied for the job at the Met Office after uni. I travelled for a bit, decided that I wanted to do some weather, and I then basically applied for the Met Office and joined their trainee scheme. It was 6 months, very intense 6 months in their Met Office college training process, and then a 6 months of on-the-job training as well. And then you become a qualified meteorologist, and you're then let out into the wide world. And there's so many different areas of meteorology that you probably never thought about how the weather impacts. So, the first one to think about is, which we did a lot of work with, was aviation. So we worked really very closely with the RAF as well in the front line. We work with commercial customers such as Sainsbury's and Marks and Spencer's, other supermarket brands, the energy industry.
What are the supermarkets looking for?
They're really interested in like the longer term forecast stuff. So if we're talking like maybe 10 days from now, they're looking at things like things like in the summer, are we going to be needing barbecues out in time? Are we needing to get our seasonal goods? Are we going to be having some really hot weekends that we're going to need more ice cream shipped in? Are we going to be needing more strawberries? And it comes down to this whole thing. In fact, one supermarket, I don't think I can name the exact name, but one supermarket you'd brief them in the morning at 8:30 and you'd tell them what the story was for the day. And you'd say, "Oh, actually, folks, the story's changed. It's going to be a warmer day, a brighter day, and actually a really nice afternoon." And they had this ability that they could change in some of their London stores. They could get out more sandwiches for their lunchtime slot, because they knew the number of people that would go out and buy a lunchtime sandwich, meal deal, for example.
Go sit there in the park.
Exactly.
Wow.
It was that kind of, the knowledge of these things that you just think about. Wow, we can really fine tune by knowing all this data, and they can look back on previous days when you could say, oh, this is when it was last like this from previous data. And then they can turn around and say, oh, well, we know from that day, this is how many things we sold. And these are the items we sold. So let's get more of that in.
So it's a very analytical role in some aspects.
Oh, very much so. In fact, here's another one that's very interesting, a funny, interesting fact. We had a crisp. This is very off topic. We had a crisp a company, I think it was, I can't remember, and they shipped crisps around the UK, and they were really interested in strong winds. And I was like, why would they be interested in strong winds? And obviously the reason is because when you transport crisps, they don't weigh very much. So they had a big problem that these big lorries couldn't actually transport loads and loads of crisps because they would just blow over in very strong winds. Wow. So yeah, it impacts a lot of different things, and obviously that's just a small part. And I then took that step and went down into public weather and also radio and TV.
So you sort of mentioned it a little while ago. At heart, you are a meteorologist, and you're probably a broadcaster for more like 5% of the day. What does correct me if I'm wrong, if there is a slightly different percentage, but what do you do in the rest of the day to research for that?
See, this is always that question. It's everyone says you're only on telly for 2 minutes. And I'm like, whoa. So you've got to remember, I think the first thing you've got to think about is when you wake up in the morning and you turn on the TV and you're watching Good Morning Britain or another broadcaster, for example, to get your local news and weather. And you've got to remember that news program and that weather information has come from a source that, they don't just rock up at 6 a.m. and there's the forecast. So a meteorologist team for us here for ITV, we use the Met Office, and there are the meteorologists working throughout the night 24/7. So it's a 24/7 role, what I used to do, where, you're analysing data, you're looking at model output, and then you are effectively seeing how well the model is coping right now with the current situation, and you're then assessing how well it's going to forecast over the coming few days. And then, so my day-to-day role effectively is I am analysing data. I'm looking at new model runs that are coming in every few hours. I'm looking at the current situation, what we've got now. Particularly in the summer months, we're really interested in when those highest temperatures are going to be. So I'm keeping an eye on the maximum temperatures across the region, across the country. Are we close to any records? What type of, have we got any more? Is there more cloud than what the model wants? Because that can have an impact on temperature. So we're constantly analysing the data and providing that data from a reliable source. And then my main role, obviously, is the broadcasts that I do. So I do a total of Anglia, I do 12 a day.
12 a day?
12 a day, yeah. And when I cover other sites, I think the most I've ever done is about 30. 30
in a day?
Yeah, in a day. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's quite a lot. And you think that's quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
And being, you have to be, you have to be engaging, you have to be informative, but you also have to be, quite, enthusiastic and be able to talk and still make that story interesting, because otherwise people will just switch off. So
yeah, I can imagine that's quite hard, because I can almost imagine for you to go on air, you've sort of got to hype yourself up and get ready. But if you're doing 30 a day, to get that sort of energy to do it constantly must be quite tricky.
Yeah, it is quite tricky. I think the difference, because you get like a passion for it and the love of it comes out, and the adrenaline is there. So, contrary to belief, when it comes to forecasting, people think, and weather presenting, people think that you're just reading auto cue. So weather is one of the few things in news that there is no auto cue. It's just, so when I look in the camera, unlike a newsreader, they see their auto cue and their scripts. When I look in the camera, I see myself and the graphics behind me, because it's all chroma keyed, it's all green screen technology. So when I look actually behind me, there's nothing there. So I make my show, so I know what I need to be saying, but I don't exactly know the phrases that are going to come out of my mouth until I say them on the fly And in my ear, at the same time, I've got someone counting me down to 0, and everything has to end on 0.
Yeah.
So it's quite you need to make this story interesting, and you need to make it so it's relatable and understandable, and getting that information across is the most important part too. And I think that finishing on 0 is the key.
So I can imagine, obviously in some of your previous roles, you were able to leave the office quite a bit and get outside. Do you still get to do that so much with broadcasting?
So that is a great question. And now the thing is for me, I love in the winter and the summer to be, it's lovely to be in the comfort of the studio where it's air conditioned in the summer and it's nice, warm and toasty in the winter. But as I'm a geographer through and through, the best place to be is outside. And that is where the weather is. And the viewers, they want to see you. They want to see you outside. So I've done things like, I'm a bit of a yes man, which is, I think, work love. They'll say, Chris, we want you to be, we want you to go and do kayaking tonight. Can you kayak in the programme? I'm like, yeah, of course I'll do that. I've done things like, I've done forecasts on the top of zip wires. I've done it sailing a boat. I've done mid-programme teases I've done a full forecast with baby lambs during lambing season, like nibbling my jacket, and the thing is when you're on location as well, you've got that added pressure where there's no graphics, there's no script, there's just you, the cameraman or camera operator, and that little person in your ear going 3, 2, 1, and you're done, and it's like you just are praying that you are in time with the graphic. Praying. And of course they love it when it goes wrong, and that's the worst bit for you on location. Yeah. But the viewers absolutely love that. So yeah.
So this is sort of a double question. We generally ask, what sort of personality traits do you see in yourself that have helped you get here? I sort of want to ask it for both the meteorologist side and also the broadcasting side.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's start with the meteorology side. So first of all, it's the passion and the love for what I study and I learn about. And it's something that impacts everyone every day. And, at the end of the day, us Brits love talking about the weather. So you have to be prepared for that question, even when you go down to you fill up your car with fuel or you go shopping and someone says, the small talk is, oh, it's really warm meant to be this weekend. And you're like sitting there going, actually, it's going to be about average. And you're like, no, not say that. I need to not say that.
Yeah, we've got about this 20% humidity. And
or they say, oh, I heard that it's going to be snowing this weekend. You're sitting there going, now, do I say anything? Really? So I think you have to have that real passion. There has to be that analytical side. So I trained in geography. So I'm a geographer at heart. So I've always been looking at data. I've always been looking at pattern recognition and understanding different things, which is a skill. But then as a meteorologist, they're always looking for other skills. So they're looking for chemists, they're looking for physicists, they're looking for mathematicians, lots and lots of different skills. And earth science is a great way. So that's the kind of like degree kind of thing you need, but you can branch out and have anything. In fact, people on my meteorology course, my forecasting course at the Met Office, work from all different walks of life and backgrounds. And that gives a real broad spectrum of skills, which is really important. But at the end of the day, you have to have that passion, that wanting to know and understanding. And I think then when I've come to the broadcast side, my skill set, so one of the things when you train to be a meteorologist at the Met Office is you become an aviation forecaster. Now, an aviation forecaster is someone who is forecasting for every aircraft in the UK takes a forecast from a meteorologist, and the RAF and everyone. And we are giving very specific sets of information and criteria. And if we say, for example, the wind is going to be X speed in this direction, and knowing full well that actually the runway at, say, for example, Heathrow or Gatwick, that will cause large crosswinds, then our forecast can have a big impact on the travel at the airport, and that can have big impacts on their operations. So it's quite a specific role. Whereas my area of expertise, I'm a bit more of a communicator. So I like to speak to people. I like to talk on the phone. I'm happy to do more briefing jobs. or now as I do stand up in front of camera or do radio and stuff. So, there's a lot of variety in the analytical side, but then being able to deliver that in the right context for your customer, or in my case, I suppose my customer is the viewer or you guys at home.
So for me, going through my career, I've sort of fell more and more in love with analytics and data. And you've sort of said, there's a lot of data you have to probably read through and learn or pick out the bits that are needed. Did that sort of come naturally to you, or was that a skill you picked up at university or later on working for the Met Office?
I think, you always, like you say, even as a youngster, there are things that you feel you're good at, and there are things that you have to push yourself and try and learn. And I was, because I just had, the geography side was always looking at data, but kind of having a reason for that. So what does this data show? What is the outcome of this? And what does that mean? And so, I had that kind of background knowledge of understanding a bit of the maths, a bit of the science, or understanding the science and putting that together. And I think that's then basically where I've come to today. Is on my daily basis, I'm constantly analyzing data, I'm reading output, and still learning about this. It's still a science, and it is still also, there is a part of an art. People say there's a bit of an art in forecasting, because at the end of the day, you've got to remember that you are effectively predicting the future of what is going to happen on the understanding of what you have of the atmosphere. So, it's the one job in the world that potentially, if I get it wrong, I still have my job at the end of the day. Hopefully.
That's a good, actually, sort of how accurate now are our models, and have they got more and more accurate over the years?
So the forecast has improved greatly. And that really has become from our computing power, our ability to now have, the fact that our mobile phones nowadays can do so much, and it's just in the palm of our hands. Whereas you go back 10, 20, 30 years, and the computing power used to take up, huge buildings just to do small, simple procedures and small what we class now as small calculations. And so I think it's our 5-day forecast now is as good as our 1-day forecast was 30 years ago.
Wow.
So that just shows how that's improved. The problem is that there is so much data to analyze. The computers are chucking out so much information. It's looking at the right piece of data in the right time and analyzing it in the right way. That's the key skill now.
And I guess what for you is the biggest positive of the career you've chosen?
Cool. The best thing I think I love about my job is I love that every day, I'm effectively doing something that I love. It's a passion that I have, and I'm telling it to someone that maybe it's just me and you for the next 2 minutes. I'm going to go on this little story, on this journey. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen with the weather, what it's going to mean to you, what it's going to feel like. And that allows you to take it away, and, you plan your day, or I've provided you with some information that's going to help you. And I think that the best part of my job is the forecast is a really big part, but also there's what we call the pre-chat. So the pre-weather chat. What we do just before the forecast. And that's we have a little bit of fun. It's the light-hearted part of the program, particularly like in today's, in the last year, because of what's been going on with COVID, etc. It's that little bit of normality that we can have a little bit of fun. We can, let's learn. And we do little features. So we learn something, we go and meet people, we go and do things at schools, or we go to a location, we do the forecast there. And I think it's getting out, doing stuff outside, like the fun stuff that, that I would never think about being able to do that on a daily basis, that I am doing and I'm absolutely loving every day. It's hard work, don't get me wrong. It's very hard work, and there's a lot of pressure involved, but it all pays off in the end.
And on the flip side of that, what would be some of the less favourable aspects you've encountered?
So that is a really good question. I think from the meteorology side, when I was a meteorologist, the hardest thing I did struggle with was weather is 24/7. It is a shift working job. So, you're doing 12-hour day shifts, 12-hour night shifts.
Wow, that's a long time, isn't it? On
Yeah,
day and nights.
Exactly. It's a really tough job. And that's, writing forecasts at 4 a.m. in the morning when everyone's asleep and you're just like, oh God, this is tough, but it still has an impact. And those really tough weather days when, particularly at this time of year in the winter, 1 degree can make all the difference to the forecast. And you can write this fantastic forecast, it's all going to plan, and then you just about to do your handover at 7:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning to the next person that takes on the baton for the day, and you're just sitting there and you can see that everything in your forecast is falling apart, and you're thinking, I've spent 12 hours on this. Why is this happening? It doesn't happen very often, but there are those days and you're just like, oh gosh, I wish it had gone right. But I think the worst part of my job in regards to the broadcast meteorology side, or what I do now, is now seeing how fast the global temperature is rising and how that is impacting our weather story, how that is impacting the records and impacting the planet on such a daily basis, or on now, even in the time that I've been doing the job, everything it's the hottest day on record. We've had the hottest summer. We've just in 2020 was the hottest year globally on record. We've had the highest number of hurricanes in the Atlantic hurricane season. And, you're hearing all these records being broken all the time. And the records in some aspects, particularly with temperature, go back to like 1910 for the UK. And we are beating them, year on year. And 2020 has just hit the hottest decade, it's ended the hottest decade on record. And I think it's that rapid increase in temperature rise and the fact that we are now so perilously close to this 1.5 degrees Celsius rise. We're already at 1.1 Celsius, 1.2 Celsius. So in the next 10 years are going to be vital into making a difference globally. We have to
you're more or less on the front line of that whole global warming. What sort of things do you think as a country, as a world, that we can really do to make an impact there and stop this?
So I think that's a really good question. And the thing that a lot of people ask all the time is, or they say, it's a global problem. What can I do? What am I doing? And the thing is that if everyone had that idea, then we're not ever going to make any progress. And it's little things at home, even to that, like, I like eating meat, but we've gone into now doing just 1 day a week to 2 days a week of what we call meat-free Monday or whatever I think it started with last year or year before. And just doing that, cutting back and doing small life changes, or turning your heating down 1/2 degree Celsius or 1 degree Celsius, and buying food that is more sustainable, buying things that you can get sourced more locally. Think about your carbon footprint. Think about, do I need to buy asparagus from Puerto Rico, or do I need to buy, can I get it locally? Can I get it something that's more sustainable and will have less of a carbon footprint impact? Even things like, does anyone need bank statements printed anymore? Things like that. Can you change everything? Can you make small changes in your life? And actually, if we all make those small changes, it will have a bigger impact.
What's it going to look like for the UK if this kind of carries on for the next 10 years? Just a lot warmer, or will it get a lot warmer and a lot colder?
So I think that's the thing, isn't it? When you say to people, oh, so the be all and end all is that with climate change happening, for the UK, we're likely to see warmer, wetter winters. So we're less likely to see snowfall and frosts. In fact, I think it's by 2050. I might be wrong there. Don't necessarily quote me on that. If not by 2100, the south of the UK is basically not going to see any frost days anymore. So temperatures, you won't just get a frost in the south. So that does have some benefits, because you could be seeing like the growing season will be increasing in that. So that does have some benefits. But the other side to that as well is that our summers are going to get hotter and drier. And when we see, temperatures last year were jumping up. I think 2 years ago, in 2018, we saw temperatures, the hottest ever temperature ever recorded in the UK at 38.7 Celsius in Cambridge. And then last year, we saw literally 3 or 4 days where temperatures were like the mid to upper 30s. And, I think also it puts it into perspective on our weather graphics that the color scale doesn't go higher. The numbers don't change. They don't get any darker. And you're thinking, we need to be changing this, I think, and add more dark colors in it. But
that would be a milestone, though, if at one point you guys had to actually go, right, we need to change the color system because our variation is just getting wider and wider.
It will be the next 10 years that we will see 40 degrees Celsius here in the UK.
Wow.
Without a doubt. In the next 10 years.
That's if we don't change what we're doing.
And, the thing is as well that we have to remember is that even if every single person in the world, we stopped producing carbon dioxide today, carbon dioxide does have a decay. It lasts in the atmosphere for up to 100 years. So there is still the fact that we will see these impacts happening, but we need to slow that curve down. We need to absorb more of that carbon dioxide. We all these, there's technology out there now to absorb this carbon dioxide and remove it from the atmosphere. We need to be doing those kind of things to make this dramatic change. So I think it's really important that we are basically thinking about the climate and thinking about what we can do individually on an individual basis to have an impact.
Absolutely. And what would be something that it was not in the job description that you never expected going into this industry?
That is a very good question. Something that was not, I think, being that kind of, when you're in the public eye, which you forget, is that you are susceptible to a lot of people very quick to comment on stuff. So, you might sit there at home in the evening, and we all do it, and you just look at someone on screen and say, well, we wouldn't want that on screen today. But the thing is now that with social media, people are very quick to say that, actually message you directly. And I think that something that doesn't come in any of the stuff that you're told, you have to be quite thick-skinned at times, because people can be quite quick to complain about stuff. And I'm not saying that that's like a knock on, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen a lot. I'll say that now. It doesn't happen a lot, but it's when you're trying to do your best and then someone can just knock you down from it. I wouldn't go out in the street and turn around to someone and say, oh, I don't like that coat you've got on. To someone I don't know.
Yeah. It's so true, isn't it? You just never would say these things in person.
No. So why, what was the thing that happened last year? If you can be anything, be kind. So if you don't need to say it, don't worry.
And is there anything for potentially young meteorologists or broadcasters that you would recommend doing that maybe is not so natural on the career path of studying geography or things like that would really help them?
Yeah. Well, I would say try and get some experience. Try and, go and maybe go and see if you can do some work experience. See if you can get in contact and maybe have a go at presenting the weather, or maybe have a go at going to do a trial period at a job. And also, I think the thing you need to think about as well is that whatever age you're listening to this, particularly youngsters, make sure you study something that you enjoy and you want to learn about, and you want to understand, and you want to go and learn about, because the last thing you want to be doing is studying something that you don't think is going to, you're not going to enjoy. That's a real big thing, to have a passion for it. And, read and ask questions, get involved, ask questions, find out about stuff, visit, try and get in contact with companies and ask for, do they have any graduate programs? Do they have a way in? Are there, but you've just got to make sure that you do something that you want to do and you enjoy doing.
Thank you. And would you still go into this industry knowing everything you know now?
Do you know what? 100%. 100%. It is the best job in the world. It's the best thing I've ever done. it was really a tough decision for me to make, to leave the Met Office, because I had so many great friends and I loved the weather and I loved doing that. The difference is that now this is like the best part of that job. Every day I am doing, I'm telling you at home something that is going to have an impact on your life potentially, on a day-to-day basis, what you're going to wear and what not, or what you're going to do. And I think as well, particularly now with the climate stuff, these buzzwords such as net zero, as carbon sinks, etc., all that knowledge and all that talk is going to become more of our day-to-day speak, and we're at a great position to provide that. And if it means that you can take something away from the 1 minute or 30 seconds before the weather, that we've given you a little bit of information, you've learned something, that's a really good thing to do.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat with us, Chris. It's been really interesting, actually, and it's just nice to hear someone who's super passionate about what they do.
No, that's much appreciated. Yeah, and no, thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you again. And where can people find you on Instagram? And what is the average time that you'll be on ITV so we can come watch you?
So we are on weeknights ITV at about 6:20. But as you know, there are more broadcasts throughout the day. You can also check out the website, which is itv.com/for me. It would be Anglia, but there are other obviously presenters out there as well. And on social platforms, I am at ChrisPage90, and on Facebook, where we do a little bit more in-depth chats and bits and pieces, I am Chris Page TV.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris.
Cheers now.
Cheers.